Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are going to continue on the interior of the Alfarrari. Alright guys, welcome back, and those watching last week will have seen that I spent a lot of time working on making custom door trims for the Alfa. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And as always, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all that sort of stuff. It does really help the channel out. Now, coming to my door trims. Overall, seems quite positive. I am very happy going with the aluminium of the door trims, and I only got partway through because that's all I had time for. But I am going to be moving forward and hopefully getting these buttoned up today. One of the things that I did forget when I was actually building these door trims was I didn't put any sound deadening on them. So that's going to be my first task today, is to go back and sound deaden these door trims so that they actually try and block some of that sound ploughing through the door. All right, and like my previous episodes on sound deadening that I did on the floor of the Alfa, there are multiple layers you usually need to try and do to try and stop sound. Things like the butyl rubber, which is the stuff that sort of sticks on with the alfoil covering on it, that only does a limited amount of stopping the sound. You also need other layers. Now, I do have the butyl rubber on the inside of the door, which, again, that stops the vibrations of the door itself, but it doesn't actually stop a lot of the sound penetration. What you really need is you need an isolated mass-loaded vinyl, which can really help soak in the sound, and so that's what I'm going to use here. I've got this car builder stuff, which is sort of a really nice product. It would be nice to have the closed cell foam and stuff, but I'd be looking at a massively thick door trim that I just don't have room to fit in these old cars. So this is the next best option. It does have a bit of a sort of a cloth backing on it, and I'm going to stick this onto the back of the door trim and then re-wrap the leather over the top, so hopefully you won't even notice it. It makes the door trim a bit heavier, and the weight is actually sort of one of the big components to stopping the noise. So it does add weight, but stopping noise is more important than 1 or 2 extra kilos. All right, and there we go. We've got the door trim on. The clips are all back in. I haven't actually bolted it in with the armrests and stuff, but it fits, and the principle is there. So now we need to put the sound deadening on the other side, and then we can start looking at making up our inserts. All right, so I'm back in the sewing dungeon, and I've just been doing a bit of a test run of my insert piece. So this is the basically the shape, the cutout of what I need to do for my inserts. And I was just sort of doing a practice of strips of leather. Obviously, these middle, smaller pieces are going to be in black. So it's going to be sort of brown, black, brown, black, brown, black all the way down. So I'm pretty happy with the rough design at the moment. So now I need to start sort of making my strips up and see how we go about sort of putting together and making them come out the way I hope. So a lot of measuring and cutting and making up some strips. All right, I have a roll of foam, but if I actually unroll it, I have my puffy stripes. So they actually sort of look pretty decent. So hopefully I've sort of got it roughly in the shape that I want for my insert. I've sort of measured things out and stuff, but I won't really know until I start trying to glue it all onto the backing and see how it looks in the door trim. So let's do that. All right, first attempt, and that was horrible. These lines are not straight. They're wavy all over the place. There's glue everywhere, and the ends are a mangled mess. So, yes, I am going to peel this off, clean up the glue. I don't need to throw this away. This is still fine. I just need to have another think about how I go putting it together. I think I'm going to need to tidy up these ends and get these all sitting nice and flat first, and then glue it on and try and get it on perfectly straight. The issue I have is that I've got foam in the middle, and I want to keep these ends as flat as possible because this is going to be sitting behind the other door trim, so I want to be able to keep it as close as I can. I don't want the whole puffy mess pushing it sort of back from the door trim, and you'll see what I mean when it actually comes together, but we'll have another go. Let's peel this off and try again. So to clean all the glue off, I just use acetone. It does a great job for cleaning that sort of stuff up and doesn't affect the leather. Then I'm going through and ruling out my line, so I've got a guide to stick the piece I've made up and down nice and straight and even. All right, second time through, and that is looking much better. That's sitting in there nicely now. This scabby old armrest is not going to stay like this, although actually the black does look good, but it's going to be going into the tan leather. So that is one side done. So let's do the other insert, and then we can knock this out and move forward. Alright, so I've got my inserts done for both door trims. They're looking good. So now it's time to start tackling the armrests. Now, I can't leave them like this. They're looking pretty old and scabby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim them in leather. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I do enjoy doing this. I did something similar in Harry, my 911, many years ago. So first things first is I've got some vinyl, similar to what I did on the seats, and I'm going to start making patterns of the different pieces that I'm going to have to sew together to make these covers. Alright, so I sprayed a bit of glue over the armrest, and I've gone around and I've actually put vinyl onto all of the sections that I need to cut out now out of the leather to get the shape that I want so that I can actually trim the whole thing in leather. So I've got my pattern, and I've also done a bunch of alignment marks. So that's something you really need to make sure you do, so that when I put this all together, once they're all a bunch of flat pieces sitting on the desk, you're really not going to know what goes where. So by putting the alignment marks, it makes it so that you can line everything up and make sure everything goes together when it's done. So I'm going to take my patterns now and go and cut it out of the leather and see how I go sewing it all together and see if I can make it into an armrest. So here I copy my patterns onto the leather, but I'm actually also going around and adding a 6mm seam allowance and making sure I transfer over the alignment marks. Then I just sew it all together. Sasha's coming to help and clean. But that looks like it's going to work nicely. So it wraps around the front, the whole way around, except for the back. And I'll show you how I'm going to make this wrap all the way around the handle. This is the trickier bit, but while I'm here, I'm also going to add a bit of foam on top of the armrest just to pad my shoulder a little bit, because I find that I've got hard armrests on Harry the 911, and it actually digs into my elbow on a long trip, and I actually sort of try and put something sort of padded on there. So I'm going to make sure not to make that mistake on this. I might do some French seams in this because I think it might suit at least one along the edge, and yeah, let's do that. All right, my armrest cover is actually looking pretty good. I've just sort of loosely sat it over the top of the armrest and it's looking nice. But we have this weird flap here that still has to actually wrap around and join up. And obviously I haven't sewn these seams together because you won't be able to get it over the armrest. How do we do that? Well, to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cover, and I have my line here. Where the join needs to be. It's mostly worn off, but it's still there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over and sew that together along the face on both sides, and I'll show you how we go about joining it later. All right, so this is the edge that I went along, and I've done a seam, as you can see, all the way down, and sewn a strip on both sides, on the other side as well, that obviously needs to be linked up. If I get my face out of the shot, you can actually see I've got a little sewn edge. And what I'm going to do now is inside, one of the only seams that I didn't French seam. It's just probably easier and nicer if I don't. So I'm going to get some glue on this and glue these down so that they sit nice and flat, and they're not going to leave a big raised sort of lump and sit in weird places when I go to glue it all onto the armrest itself. So let's go and get some glue out. All right, so I have my cover. I've glued down the strip on the inside, and I also went through on the armrest, and there are a couple of spots that were a bit low. There was this sort of indent here, so I've stuck some leather in there, same as this other indent here, just to make it sort of reasonably smooth and neat so that you won't see this dip indent once it's glued all together. So now that's all done, we're going to put some glue on. I'm going to start with my gluing by concentrating on the upper seam that I have here, and put that on first, because that's going to sort of guide where the rest of the armrest goes. And actually, just before I do that, I just remembered I'm just going to put a little strip of the 3mm foam just on the top here, just so that it pads it out a little bit. So let's put some foam on and then start sticking it together and see how it all comes out. Hopefully I can get it nice and neat and smooth. All right, so I went through and I actually put the foam all the way on the top, and it actually looks so much better. The side, now that I see it finished, is sort of a bit sunken and doesn't actually look that great. So I'm not overly happy with that. So I think I'm going to peel this off and refoam the side and refoam the rest. But the actual fitment of the cover looks really good. Even where I've wrapped it around and these two edges come close, they're actually looking really good, and it's really neat. So I think I'm going to peel that off, put some foam in there, and then go again and recover it. And I think it should sort of give it a little bit more shape and just look a little bit neater. All right, that looks much better. So there's a few wrinkles and stuff that will come out with the heat gun, as you've seen before, but that's looking much better with a bit of foam in there. Yeah, ending up wrapping the whole thing in foam, and it makes it look much nicer, so I'm happy with that. So now I've got my seam that I've got down the back here that is not joined. And I have a needle and thread. I should get myself a curved needle. It's going to make my life so much easier, but I don't have one, so I'm going to use this. And I'll demonstrate now how I actually stitch together. It's basically the same method they use on steering wheels. So because I've got the 2 lines of stitches here, I basically go from one stitch to the other stitch all the way along and just stitch together, crisscross all the way down, and pull the whole seam together and nice and tight, and that's how it's done. So
So here you can see how painstakingly slow this is. It would be much easier if I got myself a curved needle and saved myself a whole bunch of time.
And there we go, there's the finished armrest. And you can see here where I've done the stitching all the way down. So if I get my head out of shot, it'll focus. Yeah, so you can see it's not perfect and it gets a bit ugly down the end here, but I'm not overly concerned because you don't see that. That is the underside at the back. So you'd basically have to be ducking your head down and getting right against the armrest to actually be able to see it deliberately so it's out of sight. And yeah, with a little bit of heat gun work, this is going to be perfect. So let's do armrest number 2.
So after cleaning up the armrest, I give it a bit of a hit with a heat gun. It makes a big difference tightening everything up and just getting rid of all of the wrinkles. Then I go around and tidy up the speaker holes and other bits and pieces and then try them on.
All right, so this is actually coming up pretty decent. I'm most of the way there, but there is a chrome trim that sits on top of the door all the way along that I need to tidy up a little bit. It's actually not chrome, it's stainless steel. So I'm going to try and I might see if I can just knock out a couple of these little bumps here and get that a little bit tidier. And then we'll see if we can give it a bit of a polish up before we put it in the car.
So here you can see I've just put a dolly in the vise and I'm just tapping it very lightly just to get rid of any of those minor imperfections in the stainless steel before I go through and buff it up. I've got a couple of different compounds here that I go through on the buff, and it looks pretty good.
All right, this is really starting to look pretty good. There's a little bit of wobbliness in these black and tan lines, but they're puffy and yeah, I think they look pretty good. This stainless actually came up really nice on both sides. It's really starting to look good. How good is this interior looking now? I am very happy with it, but I think while I'm here, before I finish up, we can go through and add the lower sill section, which I've still got to polish, and start putting in the rubber trim. All right, so I just did some polishing and got these lower sills in, and the door trims are on and they are looking fantastic. And yeah, I think it's looking really, really good. Yeah, the interior is really coming along nicely. But yeah, I think that is all the time we have this week. So I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, In 2002, Ferrari launched a replacement for its flagship front-engined V12 550 with the 575 Maranello. Essentially, the 575 was just an update of the 550 with a redesigned interior, and the engine was taken out to a 5.7 litre V12, making 515 horsepower. The 575 was also the first front-engine V12 Ferrari to get the new F1 automated manual gearbox. In 2005, Ferrari released the Super America, which featured an electrochromic glass-panelled roof, meaning you could flick a switch and make it clear or cloudy. The roof also had a unique single-hinge mechanism, meaning, again, the flick of a switch, it would flip completely backwards and lie flat over the boot. Ferrari marketed the Super America as the world's fastest convertible, with a top speed of 320 kilometers an hour. A special 575 was built for a Japanese collector by Zagato, and it was dubbed the 575 GTZ. It was built to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 250 range, and these cars featured Zagato's trademark of a double bubble roof. A total of 6 GTZs were built, and these were officially endorsed by Ferrari.
These door trims are really a big step up. This interior is starting to feel a little bit more complete. I am very happy with how they are. I probably need to hit them with the heat gun again. They look a little bit wrinkly, but yeah, they'll just
come up
tighten up, and yeah, it's really starting to feel like a completed interior in here. Still a bit to do though. Still the back seats and other stuff. But good news, the diff I get back next week. So I still have to finish up a lot of the interior because to get it to World Time Attack, I need to have some glass in it. And to get glass in it, I have to have the interior done. So I've got to do that bit to get at least put the glass in so that I actually can seal it up. But then we can start looking at, connecting up the diff and getting the underside together. So
I'm dreading the glass a little bit because if any of you watched our early videos with Harry and putting the glass in, it was a process that really... I honestly didn't think we'd ever get the glass in.
That was just such a nightmare.
So many attempts.
But the Datsun went in first go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
We know what we're doing now. So yeah, we'll see. We've got a lot of guys to go in, but yes, that's all coming up. So hopefully you join us for that.
Yep. That would be fun for viewers, not for us. Probably not for me, because I'll be the one trying to,
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, let Jeff know what you think. He loves to read your comments.
Yep.
Again, of course, Patreon, and I think that's everything.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. See you guys.
Hello?
Yes.
Maranello.
Yellow, mellow, yellow, mellow.
Ready?
Yes.
Replacement for its flagship V12 550 front-engined by Zagato, and it was dubbed the 575Z, and it was dubbed the GT 575Z, and it was dubbed the GT 575 GTZ.